What does it take to rent in downtown San Diego? We're going to break it apart. We're going to let you know exactly what you should be making and what the numbers are. And obviously, a lot of people fall outside this rule. But for the purpose of this video, we're going to give you the perfect scenario, right? So typically, you're only supposed to spend about 30% of your income, your monthly income, on housing, utilities, and after taxes, that's about half of what you bring home. So when you deduct taxes, say you make $7,000 a month after taxes, you should spend no more than 35 on housing. That's kind of the rule of thumb after tax. Now I know a lot of people don't do that, so if you don't do that, that's what you should be doing. Even though obviously, with the high cost of living, a lot of people don't do that. I know some people that literally, I got a friend of mine, he bought a house and he's spending like 75% of his monthly income on just the mortgage payment and the bills and stuff. So I know a lot of people don't do it, but that is going to be the rule of thumb. So I also want to give you guys the insider knowledge in the real estate market, because San Diego and California in general has a lot of government subsidies through the housing of urban and development. So a lot of times it actually makes sense to make less, and a lot of people aren't going to understand why I said that. But see, San Diego, in between all these condos and stuff you see, these are actually all hotels here off Bayfront Drive and Pacific Coast Highway. But a lot of these high-rise hotel or condos down here, they are actually, a lot of people living in them are low income, and that income can be as high as $67,000. So not really low if you look at some parts of the United States. Some parts of the United States, you could live fairly well as a single individual. Not many nowadays, but there are some areas, especially like Oklahoma, Kansas, Arkansas, these type of areas. $67,000 a year, you can do pretty well. You can, start an investment portfolio. You can have your rent pretty much covered with about $1,100 a month in a nice place. But in San Diego, $67K is really not poverty, but it's going to cause you to not be able to pay your monthly expenses, especially your rent, at those higher numbers, because you're simply not going to make enough after tax to cover it. Most of the apartments down here in San Diego, especially when you move towards Bayfront Drive, Pacific Coast Highway, looking over at Point Loma, they're going to run you you're going to be at about $2,100 for a studio. A one bedroom is going to cost you about $2,400. And again, these are bottom level numbers. You can find places, okay, like if I go outside of San Diego, I know we're going to have people say, oh man, that's too much, but we're talking about kind of in the vicinity of downtown. You can go up to North Park, Hillcrest. You might be able to find very few, but you might be able to find some places for like 16, 17, 1800. Now these are going to obviously be older buildings. They're not going to be these, super nice condos, or most of these right here are condos, but people do rent them out. And you're going to have kind of an older place if you decide to go down that route. Now, if we break those numbers apart, what you really should be making is, if you're supposed to spend half your money on, rent, really, I think you should spend less than half if you want to be able to invest and build up an investment portfolio and build up reserves where you could have something other than an apartment and a car payment, because that's not really living, in my opinion. To be honest, is if you just rent an apartment and you have a car payment, I mean, that's all you need, but that should not be all you want. I know everybody's different. Some people, the last thing they care about is investments, but that's really the only way I see people getting ahead, is people that invest in the markets, invest in real estate, invest in something. So with an apartment, you're basically just, you're basically just throwing your money away each month, which is fine. You have to have a place to live. I understand that. But at the same time, if you're only making $4,000 a month and you're spending $2,500 in rent, you're not ever going to get ahead. You're not going to be able to pinch those pennies, to save 16, 17,000 a year, because you got to eat. You likely have to have a car. Some people do, stuff where they cut their car out, they don't have a car payment. They live downtown locally. But I would go as far to say is if you want to be in that category where you have an apartment down here or a condo in sunny San Diego, these up here are going to be closer to the $3,000 range. If you find one, $3,100, $3,200. Like I said, you can go outside of the city a little bit to North Park, Hillcrest, some of the other areas, and find maybe some places for $1,600, $1,700. They might be 100 years old. I mean, literally. So with that, I would say if you want to live down here, you want to be comfortable down here, you probably need to make more along the lines of, I would say about 7,000 to 8,000. All right, if you're a single human. If you are a couple, you probably want to be in that $12,000 to $15,000 range, because again, we're looking at the bottom tier apartments. We're looking at the entry level apartments. We're not talking about 2-3 bedrooms. We're not talking about owning where you have mortgage insurance, you have HOAs and all these things. We're talking about just for the rent. So again, just for the rent down here in one of these tall buildings, any one of them you see, you're looking at about $3,100. I can go into some of the more spottier areas of San Diego. You can drop down, you can find a studio, probably 400 square feet, 350 square feet for in the $2,200, $2,300 range. They're not likely going to have washer and dryer inside, so you're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have kind of areas that are going to have homeless people scattered in between, the apartments. So some people want to save money. I get it. I would say if you want to live down here, you probably need to be bringing in about $7,000 or $8,000 after tax. Now, that is well over $100,000 a year. That would probably put you in the bracket closer to $170,000, because once you get over, I think it's $137,000, you're in that next tax bracket, and you're going to have substantial amount of money pulled out from your taxes. And I know this because my old chemistry teacher in college, he was actually brought this to our attention in class. He said, and this was 10 years ago, but nonetheless, he was making $110,000, and he got bumped up to, I think it was $160,000, and he actually ended up bringing less money home when he got bumped up to $160,000, which is absolutely insane. So again, I think he had 4 kids or whatnot. I don't know how that broke down to that, but nonetheless, that is the reality of what you need to make. You need to make about, I would say about $160,000 to $170,000 to comfortably live in downtown San Diego. That's going to allow you, to go places like Ruth's Chris for dinner maybe once or twice a month. You can go more than that, but you get my point. If you want to be able to kind of thrive and move around in the city and have some freedom to, have stuff set aside, maybe a car payment or extra money to be set aside for an investment portfolio, I would say those are kind of the numbers you would need to shoot for. Now, obviously, on the flip side of that is if you make under $67,000 a year, a lot of these same apartments that people are paying $2,800, $2,900 drop down to about $1,300. And that's going to be kind of a little bit strange, because how can people be in the same building in downtown San Diego, yet their rent is literally half? And that's what I'm trying to explain to you guys, that the housing and urban development in California, in the city of San Diego, they subsidize rent. And a lot of these buildings you see are those type of buildings. They look modern, nice, sleek. There's several. There's the Meridian. They're all over downtown. And that does kind of rub some people wrong, because people that are in the apartment that are paying $2,600, $2,700, and they're spending like 70-80% of their money on rent, making $85,000 a year, or $100,000 a year, and they're kind of spending a lot of their monthly income on rent. And then you have somebody that's making 65 and living in the exact same unit. That's kind of the mixed paradigm you get with downtown San Diego and just California in general. A lot of these areas are like this. They also have other programs that are set up in this downtown area where your rent could be substantially less. And these are in nice buildings. We're not talking about buildings that are dilapidated. We're talking in the same buildings that me or you would go to rent. You would have these type of situations where lower income people are able to come in and occupy their apartments. And, if they have kids or something like that, they even get a lower bracket of entry, or a lower barrier of entry, which a lot of people find unfair. Whether it's unfair or not, I'll leave that up to you guys to decide. But then also what you have down here in downtown San Diego is you have a large amount of really nice buildings from the exterior that are completely, in some cases, completely free housing for various people with mental issues, all sorts of stuff. They give housing vouchers to these people to occupy these apartments to keep them off the street. And if you and then they also offer, if you're under a certain threshold money wise, like under $40,000 a year, you can get these studio apartments for $700-800 a month. And it's very interesting because you see these buildings and they look completely normal from the exterior, but when you kind of explore the area more from a real estate perspective, you start to notice that this city is kind of intertwined and kind of mixed use, in a sense where a lot of these people are paying a fraction of the rent. And you have some people in here that are making over $100,000 a year that are barely getting by. So it's kind of a weird market down here, specifically in this San Diego area. The same thing happens in broader greater San Diego, but it's much more apparent in the downtown sector. I would say you see it a lot more. You're able to obviously spot these places pretty easy. A lot of times if you drive by and you see a lot of people kind of congregating at the bottom of what you think might be a really nice building and doesn't have an advertisement for a condo or anything like that, there's no sign, no name, just a door where people are coming in and out, that's going to be kind of these places I'm talking about. And it can kind of be troublesome too if you're not from here and you don't know the city. Then you could easily end up in a situation where you rent at a cheaper place and then you find out there's one of these places where people are getting free rent. And it's kind of annoying because these people typically have issues, and they, you're like neighbors with somebody who's getting free rent and free board. So it's kind of an interesting dynamic. I'll let you guys have your own thoughts. And again, not everybody with low income or anything like that is a problem. I'm more talking about these places that people are getting free housing that tend to be a little bit more problematic. You get, shady characters in here, people with housing vouchers and things. The low income stuff is kind of mixed in within all these properties. But, we're talking about more of the free housing, which extends in a large amount of the downtown corridor down here in sunny San Diego. Okay, I think that'll wrap it up. We'll talk to you soon. Appreciate you watching. You guys got any comments or concerns, reach out to me, and we'll talk to you in the next one. Take care.